Welcome back to the next part of our RLS Spanish lesson. So our learning objectives, our learning goals for this part of the lesson. First one is we're going to review the chorus part of the song we're doing this week. We're just going to practice that real quick, see if you can get it in Spanish. And then we'll move on to our next thing, which is I want you guys to learn what a cognate is, what that term cognate is. That's a grammar term, cognate. So learn what a cognate is and be able to identify some common Spanish cognates. Okay, so let's review the song really quick. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to put the Spanish line on the screen. I'm going to read it in Spanish or say it in Spanish. And I'm going to pause for a second. I just want you to say the English, see if you can translate to English, okay, and try to do that as quickly as possible. If it takes, if you're having a hard time, it's taking you a while, then go back and review the song some more and review the lyrics until you can get it down really fast, okay? So the first line, Maestro, ¿puedo ir al baño? Okay, good. That means teacher, can I go to the bathroom? Okay, next line is por favor. Good. That means please. Please is the way we'd say it in English. Good. So, maestro, ¿puedo ir al baño? Teacher, can I go to the bathroom? Por favor. Please. Good. Okay, yo necesito ir al baño. Good. I need to go to the bathroom. Okay, next line. Es una emergencia. Okay, it's an emergency. Or it is an emergency. Okay, the next line. Maestro, no puedo esperar. Teacher, I cannot wait. That's the way we'd say it in English. Teacher, I cannot wait, or I can't wait. ¿Por qué no puedo ir? Why can't I go? Good. ¿Por qué no puedo ir? Why can't I go? Okay, really quick. Let's do that one more time, just super quick. See if you can get these quick. So, maestro, ¿puedo ir al baño? Teacher, can I go to the bathroom? Por favor. Please. Yo necesito ir al baño. I need to go to the bathroom. Es una emergencia. It is an emergency. Maestro, no puedo esperar. Teacher, I cannot wait. ¿Por qué no puedo ir? Why can't I go? ¿Por qué no puedo ir? Okay, very good. Now remember that our next thing, let me get through that part real quick. Our next learning goal is to learn what a cognate is. Okay. So let me explain what that means really quick. A cognate, the term cognate, that is a language term, a grammar term. The way I would explain it is what it means is a word that exists in more than one language and where they use a similar word or the same word, meaning the way you spell the word, the way the word looks is the same or isn't similar in more than one language, and it means the same thing. Okay? So in this case, what we're talking about is words in Spanish that look like an English word. Okay, they're either spelled the same as an English word or spelled similar to an English word. And for it to be a cognate, it has to mean the same thing as that English word. Okay, so in the song lyrics we were just looking at, probably the best example is this word right here, emergencia. Okay, emergencia. So that looks kind of like the word emergency, and it means emergency. Okay, so emergencia. The biggest difference a lot of times with the cognates is the pronunciation. Notice that the way you pronounce that is way, in a lot of ways, way different than it is in English. But it looks similar, it's spelled similar, and it means the same thing. So emergencia, emergency. Okay, a couple other examples here. Notice that the word es basically means is. Okay, technically it means it is. It can mean like he is, she is. Sometimes it means you are. Okay, but the times that it means is, like he is, she is, it is, that would be a cognate because the word s looks like the word is. Okay. The word una, that one's that's a little trickier, but it is kind of a cognate. It means an. Okay. Looks kind of similar, and it means the same thing. Okay. Some people might argue that one's different enough that it's not a cognate, but okay, to me that one's kind of a cognate. Another example would be the word no. Okay. Notice that it looks like not. It means not. It also can mean no. Okay. So when you're saying no, like no, I'm not gonna do that. Okay, you would say no for that as well. Okay. So anyway, that one's a cognate. Looks like no, means no. Looks kind of like not, spelled similar to not, means not. Okay. All right. So those ones are probably your best examples from the song lyrics here. Well, let me throw out one other one. The word necesito means I need. Okay. That one's a little trickier, but it's still kind of a cognate. It's like the word necessary in English. You know, if something is necessary, you could say I need that thing because it's necessary. Or like the verb necessitate. Okay, we don't say it that way a lot in English, but like I necessitate that thing. I necessitate to go to the bathroom, right? Anyway, it's probably the best word is necessary. You can connect it to that word necessary. That if something is necessary, that means you need it. So it's kind of like what I would call an indirect cognate. Okay, because it doesn't mean necesito doesn't mean like it's gonna mean I need, which is slightly different than necessitate, but it's a word that is similar in meaning. Okay, all right. So those are cognates. Now, I'm going to give you some other examples of cognates. These ones, what I'm going to do with these ones, I'm going to give you the Spanish word first. And before I tell you what it means in English, I want you to, on your own, to think about or say it out loud or tell me through your screen what the word would be in English, okay? So I'm going to give you the Spanish word first. So the first one is the word taco. Taco. So what is that in English? Okay, good. Obviously, it's the word taco in English. Okay. So we have taco, taco. Okay, the next word, tortilla. Okay, what is that in English? Good. Tortilla. Now I'm going to point out a couple things let's get through the list and then I'll come back and point out a couple things. Okay, the next one is jalapeno. Jalapeno. Okay, good. In English, it'd be jalapeno. Notice how the pronunciation is slightly different on that one between English and Spanish. In Spanish, jalapeno. In English, most people would say jalapeno. Okay, jalapeno, jalapeno. So even though it's spelled exactly the same, means the same thing, the pronunciation is a little bit different. Okay, next word in Spanish, elefante. Elefante, what would that be in English? Okay, good. In English, that's going to be the word elephant. Elephant. Okay, next Spanish word, computadora. Computadora, what would that be in English? Computadora. Okay, good. That is the word computer in English. Okay, our next cognate, the word teléfono. Teléfono. What is that in English? Okay, good. It's the word telephone in English. Okay, I've got one more. Spanish is the word televisión. Televisión. And in English, that's obviously going to be, good, television. Okay, same thing there. Basically spelled exactly the same. You do have an accent mark in Spanish, but other than that, it's spelled exactly the same. But the pronunciation is quite a bit different. In Spanish, televisión. In English, television. Televisión, television. Okay. All right, let me point out a couple things with these cognates. I did choose these on purpose, these specific ones. because there's a couple things I want to point out. First off, notice the first thing I want to do with this is there's a lot of Spanish pronunciation that you already know. You just didn't realize that you know it. Okay. Part of it is because you know a lot of these words, you know these cognates. Okay. So with the word taco, first thing I want you to think about with that one, in English, if that was an English word, okay, the reason this one's a cognate is we adopted it from Spanish. Okay. They were already using the word taco in Spanish. We just adopted that. A lot of these we adopted from Spanish. Tortilla, jalapeno, are ones we adopted from Spanish. But the other ones, I'm not sure in elefante where that originated from. I know a lot of the tech words originated in English, and then they kind of adopted it into Spanish, right? So like this one originated as the word computer. When they started using that word in Spanish, they just made a similar word, computadora. Telephone probably originated in English, and then they made a similar word, teléfono. Television, televisión, okay? So some of these we adopted into English from Spanish, and a lot of times that's how you get these cognates is they'll take a word from one language and just kind of adopt it into the other language. So anyway, we adopted some of these food words from Spanish into English, and then they adopted some of the tech words from English into Spanish. Okay. All right. So anyway, sorry, I got off track there. So getting back to the word taco, what I want you to think about it, if that was an English word, if this had originated in English, how do you think we'd pronounce that? Okay. Think of some other words spelled similar to taco, and think about how we pronounce those. Okay. For example, we have the game tic-tac-toe, right? So with that similar word, we say tack instead of talk. All right, this is taco, not taco. We also have the word tack, T-A-C-K, tack. We have the word tackle. Okay, so anyway, we have some similar words in English that are spelled similar, but they're pronounced different. Mostly the biggest difference is we, with the letter A, would make a sound. Tack, tic-tac-toe, tackle, etc. Okay? But notice in Spanish, the sound that is making is an ah. Okay? So in Spanish, the letter A is always going to do that. It always makes the sound ah. Okay? So this one, taco. This one's going to be an ah, tortilla. The A's in this word are ahs, jalapeno. This one's an ah, elefante. That one's an ah, both those A's in there are ah, computadora. Okay, and then we don't have A's in those words, okay? So in Spanish, if you ever see an A, it's always going to make an ah sound, okay? Or if you hear that sound ah, it's always going to be an A in Spanish, okay? Now, it's not like English. In English, the letter A actually makes a bunch of different sounds. I think you can make like 5 or 6 different sounds, right? Because it can be an ah sound, it can be an ah sound, it can be a sound. Sometimes it's a sound. Okay. So anyway, but in Spanish, it only makes one sound. It's always the same sound. It's always an ah. Okay. Same thing with the O. Okay, this actually happens with all the vowels in Spanish. So the A, the E, the I, the O, the U. In Spanish, the way you say those is A, E, O, U. Okay. So like these I's, sound I'm getting off. Let me start with the O here. So the O always makes an O sound. Okay. So in this word, taco, it's an O sound. This word, it's an O, tortilla. And that one, it's an O, jalapeno. This one has 2. Both those are going to be an O sound. Computadora. Okay, so that's one where in English it makes a different sound, right? In English it's like it's like an sound, computer. But in Spanish that's an O sound, computadora. Okay, this one, those O's will both be O. Okay, O, Teléfono. And then this O also makes an O sound. Televisión. Okay, and that's one that's different in English, because in English that makes kind of an sound. Television. It's like a I don't even know how you say it in English. It's almost not even an sound anyway. Television. It's like a weird sound, but in Spanish it's a O. So if there's no there, it's always going to make that O sound. Televisión. Okay? All right, so the A and the O in Spanish, that'd be A-O, taco. Okay? Once again, the O here, the O and the A, tortilla. Okay, on this one, I want to point out the I. So in Spanish, the I always makes a E sound. Okay? So tortilla. The I is making an E sound. Also, the other thing with this word is the double L. When you have a double L in Spanish, it always is going to make like a Y sound, like the letter Y. It's like the letter Y in the word U. It's a Y sound, okay? Tortilla. Okay? And notice how this one in English, the way you pronounce it is a little bit different, right? In Spanish, it's tortilla. In Spanish, you say tortilla. So tortilla. It's just a little teeny bit different there. And I think that's coming from the O. Like the O is a little more pronounced in Spanish. Tortilla. Okay. All right. Are there any other I's? Okay, so you have the I's in this word as well. Televisión. Okay, so visión. In English, it makes different. That's part of the reason the pronunciation is different here, is because in English you have television. So it's like an I and then a television. Well, it's kind of making the S make a sh, like a different sound. That's what that I is doing. But in Spanish, those I's both make the same sound. It's E. Televisión. And remember, the O always makes an O sound. Televisión. Okay. All right. Don't have any other examples with the double L. I will point out. Let's point this out. So the double L makes like that Y sound, the Y sound, tortilla. Okay. But notice when you have a single L in Spanish, it makes the same sound it does in English. It's the normal, like an English L sound. Jalapeño. It's that L sound. So you have it there, jalapeño. You have it in elefante. You have it in televisión. Or sorry, I said that wrong. Teléfono. You have it in, and this one, televisión. Okay. So a single L will do the same thing it does in English, but a double L is different in Spanish than it is in English. It makes a Y sound. Okay. Instead of like an L sound. All right. Let's go to the next word. Jalapeño. Okay, there's a couple things going on here. The first thing is the J. In Spanish, the letter J always makes an English H sound. Okay, it's always a H sound. So jalapeño. I don't have any other words here with that, but you've probably heard the names like Juan, 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 or Jose, Jose. Or like the name Jesus in Spanish, the way you say it is Jesus. Okay, so that J makes like an H sound. So anyway, it's always an H sound. I don't know. It's a little more guttural than it is in English. It comes from your throat a little more. Jalapeño. Jesus. Juan. Jose. Okay. So it's not. I don't know, it's not exactly the same as the English H sound, but it's really similar. Okay, so anyway, the J makes an H sound. Remember the A, like we had here, taco, here, tortilla. It's going to be that same sound, okay, jala. The L makes normal L sound, jalapeño. Now, the E, notice that the letter E in this word, it actually sounds like the letter A in English. It's making an A sound, jalapeño, okay? And it always does that. That's the only sound the E makes in Spanish. It's always an A sound, okay? So jalapeño. Same thing here. All these E's in here are saying A, elefante. The first one's a little weird, actually, because of I think it's because you have an EL. L. It's not like ale, but for the most part, it always is an A sound. Elefante. Elefante. These two are making the same sound. Basically the same sound. Exact same sound. Sorry, and then here, telefono. Televisión. Okay, so the E makes an A sound. Okay, so like that E there. Okay, so and then one other thing, let me point out on this one. So notice the little squiggly thing above the N. Okay, so in Spanish you have two different N's. You have this one that's called an ñ. It's called an ñ when it has that squiggly thing above it. Then they also have a normal N like we have in English, like an N without the squiggly thing. Okay, now the reason they do that, those two letters make different sounds. Okay, in Spanish, this one with the squiggly thing, it's kind of like an N with a Y right next to it. Like I don't know if you know the band Enya. It's an old band from like the 90s. It's kind of like the N-I-O-N in onion. It's that nya, onion. Okay, or opinion. Okay, it's that nya sound. Jalapeno. Okay, jalapeno. So it's not, what I'm trying to point out is you don't say jalapeno. Okay, if it was in English, and you'd say something like that, jalapeno, right? So it's not a n sound, peno, it's peño. It's a ñ sound, jalapeno. Okay? All right, so up here you have taco, tortilla, jalapeno. So this one had a lot. You have the J making an H sound. All the A's are making ah sounds. The E makes an A sound. The ñ makes a ñ sound. And the O always makes an O sound. Okay? Now listen, I don't know if you can hear the difference here, but it does sound a little different in English than it does in Spanish. When you pronounce it the Spanish way, it's, even though it's spelled exactly the same, it sounds a little different, right? So in Spanish, jalapeno. In English, I think most people say jalapeno. Okay, I think it's probably because of those A's in English. Okay, in Spanish they both make the same sound, jalapeno. But in English, so it's like a instead of jalapeno, right? So anyway, that's why it sounds a little different. So jalapeno in Spanish, jalapeno in English. Okay. All right. With the word, oops, I got rid of television there at the bottom. Okay. With the word elefante, the biggest thing here, well, two things I want to point out. I think I pointed everything else out already. Okay, two biggest things, the F. Okay, notice that in Spanish it's an F. In English it's a PH. Okay. In Spanish, things that are spelled in Spanish, you hardly ever are going to see a PH spelling to get that F sound. Okay. In Spanish, if it's a F sound, it's almost always going to be an F. Okay. Even off the top of my head, I cannot think of any examples where it would be PH. Because you almost always, like if in English it's spelled with the PH, they're going to change it to an F. Okay, let's just say that for now. Okay, so it's the same sound, just a different spelling. The other thing I'd point out is anytime in Spanish that there is an E, it always makes the same sound. Okay, there's no exceptions to that as far as I know. And the biggest difference with this, when I point out here in English, a lot of times you'd have a silent E on the end. Like a lot of times when the E is on the end of a word, it's silent. Okay, it doesn't make a sound. In Spanish, anytime it's there, it's going to make that A sound. Okay, so even if it's on the end of the word, this one's not the best example. If there's a cognate that ends with an E in English and it's a silent E in English, in Spanish it's going to not be silent. Okay, in Spanish it's going to make the A sound. I don't know if I like this I'm going to give this example, but this is not a cognate. They don't say this in Spanish, okay? But let's say the word make, M-A-K-E, okay? So in Spanish, it's the word hacer. It's not a cognate, okay? But let's say for purposes of what we're saying here, in English, make, the E on the end is silent. If that was a cognate and spelled the same in Spanish, the way you would pronounce make, M-A-K-E, in Spanish would be make, okay? So the A always makes an ah sound, and then the E is never silent in Spanish. It always makes an A sound. Make, okay? Make, make. All right? So anyway, on this one, so anyway, even though the E's on the end, you're still going to make that A sound. Elefante. Elefante. Okay? So, no silent E's, and the PH is usually spelled with an F. Elefante. Okay? So we have taco, tortilla, jalapeno, elefante. Okay, next one, computadora. I think the only new thing here, as far as I know, is the U. Okay, in Spanish, the U, it's one of the vowels. It only makes one sound. It always makes the same sound. Okay, in Spanish, it makes the oo sound. It's kind of like a double, like how in English you have the double O, like in foot or oops or choose. Okay, it's kind of that same sound. Ooh. Okay. The U always makes that sound. Okay, in Spanish, it's never a U like in English. You have words like utility, or sometimes it makes an sound like umpire. Okay, but in Spanish, it always is an U sound. Computadora. Okay. Yeah, I wish I had some other examples on here with the U. Anyway, it's always an U. Computadora. Okay. Yeah, in English that makes a U sound right there, right? Computer. But in Spanish it's an U sound. Computadora. Computadora. Okay. That one's a good one with a bunch of vowels. You have the you have O, you have U. Okay. So computadora. All right. Okay, teléfono. Two things I want to point out there. One is the F. Notice that in English it's spelled with the PH, but in Spanish it's going to be an F. Okay. So like I said, usually in Spanish if it's that F sound, it's going to be an F. Okay. The other thing I want to point out, notice this one has an accent mark. Okay, above the E, it has that little. Anyway, it's called an accent mark. The little mark above it. Okay. I'm going to try to quickly explain why they have that. Well, the easiest way to explain the way it affects the pronunciation is that anytime you have an accent mark, that is where the stress is. Okay, that's like the syllable or the vowel in the word that you're going to stress. Okay, so notice in this one we have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 syllables, 4 vowels, right? You have this E, that E, this O, and that O. So out of those 4, the one where you're going to stress it is this one because it has the accent mark. Okay, so you say teléfono. Okay, see if you can hear the difference here. If you were stressing this one, it would be teléfono. If you're stressing that O, it would be teléfono. And if you're stressing this O, it would be teléfono. Okay, so the stress is on this E. We know that because of the accent mark, teléfono. Okay. Now, by the way, the same thing is happening with this accent mark down here. That the stress is on that O. Okay. Televisión. Okay. So it's not this E. You don't say televisión. It's not that E. You don't say televisión. It's not this I. You don't say televisión. And it's not this I. You don't say televisión. Right? It's on the O. Televisión. Okay, and up here it's on the E, teléfono. Now, that's actually easier to explain, I think, than trying to explain the ones that don't have an accent mark. Okay, but they are related, so I'm going to explain that real quick. Okay, words that do not have an accent mark. There's 3 rules you have to keep in mind with the stress, where you put the stress on the word. Okay, the first rule says that if the word ends with a vowel, so A, E, I, O, U, A, E, O, U in Spanish. So if it ends with one of those, it ends with a vowel, or if it ends with the letter N or the letter S. Okay, so any of the vowels or the letter N or the letter S. If it ends with one of those, the rule is that you stress the second to last syllable. Okay, basically meaning the second to last vowel in the word. Okay, so in the word taco, O is the last vowel. This A would be the second to last vowel. Okay, the CO is kind of last syllable. The TA is the second last syllable. Or if you want to simplify it, O is the last syllable, A is the second last syllable. Okay, so the stress is on this A, taco. Okay, so we just know since there's no accent mark and it ends with a vowel, we know that the stress is on the A, taco. Okay, so it's not on the O. You don't say taco, you say taco. Okay. Now, this one's the same rule, ends with a vowel, so the stress is going to be on this I, the second last syllable, tortilla. Okay, so it's not the O, you don't say tortilla. It's not the A, you don't say tortilla. It's on that I, tortilla. Okay, same rule on this one, ends with an O and ends with a vowel, so the stress is on the second to last syllable, or second to last vowel, which is that E, which remember in Spanish you say A, so jalapeno. Okay. So it's not this A, you don't say jalapeno. It's not that A, you don't say jalapeno. It's not the E, you don't say jalapeno. Oh, sorry, I just said that wrong. It is that E, because it ends with the vowel, second last syllable. So it's this E, jalapeno, but it's not the O, you don't say jalapeno, right? Okay, so it ends with the vowel, so it's stressed on the second last syllable. Okay, same thing here. This one ends with an E. It's going to be second last syllable, that A right there. Okay. So you say elefante. So it's not this E, you don't say elefante. It's not that E, you don't say elefante. It's not this E, you don't say elefante. Okay, it's on the A. Elefante. 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 Okay. Same thing here, ends with the vowel. So the second last syllable, which is the O. So computadora. Stress is on that O, computadora. Okay, so it's not this O, or you'd say computadora. It's not the U, or you'd say computadora. It's not the A, or you'd say computadora. Computadora. It's not that A, or you'd say computadora. Okay, it's on the O, computadora. Computadora. Okay. All right, notice this one ends with the syllable. Ends with the vowel. So the rule says it should be second last syllable. But on this one, they don't want you to stress that letter. So they put the accent to show you where to do it. Okay, they want you to stress this, the third to last syllable, not the second to last syllable, right? So, because if you didn't have that accent mark there, if there was no accent mark, you'd say telefono. Okay, but they want you to pronounce it telefono. So they're putting the accent there to tell you it's breaking that rule. It's breaking the rule that it should follow, which is it ends with a vowel. It should be second last syllable. Okay. Now, same thing on this one. Okay. This, remember, if it ends with a vowel or the letter N or letter S, it's supposed to be the second last syllable, technically, which would be this I. Okay. I'm going to throw one other thing in here. Hopefully this doesn't confuse you. When you talk about syllables, you also have to worry about something called a diphthong. Okay. What diphthong basically means, you have two vowels that are right by each other, but they are not individual syllables. Okay. Normally, when you have two vowels, even if they're right next to each other, they would be individual syllables. Okay. But when it's a diphthong, basically what that means is you have a strong vowel and a weak vowel right next to each other. Okay. And so they kind of mesh together into one syllable instead of two separate syllables. Okay. So what I mean by that on this word, the I and the O is a diphthong. Okay. I can't remember. I think it's the I. The I and the U. I think it's the I and the U are the two that are considered weak vowels. Okay. So anytime you have an I by another vowel, you're going to have a diphthong, or if you have a U right next to another vowel, it's going to be a diphthong. Okay. So anyway, what I'm trying to point out there, this one ends with an N. Should be the second to last syllable. Because of this diphthong right here, it technically would be this I would be the second to last syllable. Okay, so it should be televisión. 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 No, I'm saying that wrong. Televisión. Okay. But they don't want you to stress right there. They want you to stress the last syllable instead of the second last syllable. Okay. Another way to think of it, even if you don't know about the diphthong thing, it still should be this I right here. It's where the stress should be. Because that would be, if there wasn't a diphthong, that would be the second last syllable. You have the O, and then second last one would be the I. The way you pronounce that would be televisión. Okay. Anyway, so they don't want you to pronounce it like that. They want the O to be stressed. Televisión. Televisión. Okay. All right. Let me point out one other, I guess two things on this word televisión with the pronunciation. The letter V in Spanish, a lot of times in a lot of countries, a lot of native speakers, that V will make the exact same sound as a B. Okay. So it's kind of like a buh sound. I don't know. It's kind of a buh sound. Okay. So a lot of native speakers, you'll hear them say like a buh sound right here. Televisión. So instead of televisión, it's visión. I don't know if you can hear that difference, but a lot of people would say televisión. Okay, televisión instead of televisión. Okay. The other thing I want to point out, when you have CION in Spanish and in English, it's like a sh sound, right? Television. Well, I guess more of a z sound. Television. Okay. In Spanish, it does not do that. Okay. If you have an SION, the way you pronounce that is sion. Okay, televisión. So not television. It's not television. It's televisión. Televisión. Okay. All right. So hopefully now you know what a cognate is. Okay. Taco, tortilla, tortilla. Jalapeño. Elefante, elephant. Computadora, computer. Teléfono, telephone. Televisión, television. Okay, so it just means the word in Spanish is similar, spelled similar, or exactly the same as the word in English, and it means the same thing. That's what a cognate is. Okay, let me check really quick. Okay, yes, we're going on to something else next. All right, so now look. As you continue forward from here, start looking for cognates, see if you can recognize cognates. One cool thing, one of the reasons that Spanish is a level 1 language for English speakers, meaning it's one of the easiest ones to learn for English speakers, is because of this. It's because of cognates. It's because there are thousands and thousands. There are I don't know exactly how many, but there's tens of thousands of cognates between English and Spanish. Okay. So basically what that means, there's a ton of words in Spanish that you already know those words. You know what they're going to mean. If you see them, you read them, you're going to know what they mean. You're going to recognize them and know what it is. Okay, like the word carro means car. The word bicicleta means bicycle, or bici means bike. Anyway, there's lots and lots of them, thousands and thousands of them, that will help you speed up your process of learning the language. Okay, so look for them, try to recognize those, and I'm going to say let's call that good for this little lesson, and we'll move on to our next one. Okay, so see you in the next video. Adios.